These concepts might be slightly more complicated, but I think you can handle it. Diffusion, from a cultural geographical standpoint, is this. This describes the process by which something spreads across the landscape or from one place to another through time. So it's going to start in one place and it's going to move to another place. It doesn't mean it loses its importance in the place it originated. It just means it's going to spread across the surface of the planet. Now, generally, the way we see this from a cultural geographical perspective is this, that the place that something originates is known as the hearth or the culture hearth. This is the place of origin of a social or cultural characteristic. Like, for example, the English language. Although English comes from some place way in the past, nevertheless, we generally look at English as being the language over the last 1,000 years or a little more of the people who live in England, which is the southern part of the island of Great Britain. But the English language has spread across the planet, as you saw in a couple of pictures that I showed you in a previous video of India. Kind of more recent, of course, the spread of COVID-19 from China and then across the planet. Well, COVID-19, of course, is not a cultural characteristic, but if you can understand and see the way that spread across the planet, you can understand the way cultural characteristics can spread across the planet as well. Let's look at something that's not so unpleasant. Alitalia Airlines is the major national airline of Italy. Take a look at this map and look at where the routes of Alitalia in Europe and the surrounding areas of Europe, where the routes are concentrated. Take a close look at it, and you can see, where is it? Alitalia is centered on the Italian peninsula. That's where the concentration is. And as you get further away from the Italian peninsula, the routes become more dispersed. This is referred to as distance decay. It's the diminishing impact of a characteristic as distance is increased from its core area. So you can see that as you get away from Italy, the number of routes Alitalia has diminishes. It shrinks. But in Italy, it's very densely covered with Alitalia routes because this is the national airline of Italy. Where culture is involved, characteristics, for example, things like language, food, hairstyles, and so on, increasing distance from the core area also results in alterations to the characteristic that has diffused. So that characteristic, whatever it may be, is going to change as you increase distance from the hearth, from the center, from the core area of where it started. English and its manifestations globally or in the United States makes for a good example. Let's think about the way English operates with the word you. You in English is both singular and plural. We don't have a unique word for plural you in English. It's not like Spanish where it's usted and ustedes. It doesn't work like that. So we have this single word you that is both singular and plural. And because of that, in the United States, there's multiple versions of this. There's you for plural, but there's also yous, yuns, y'all, you guys. All of these things mean the same thing. They're all plural versions of the word you, but they're concentrated in certain areas. Yuns is spoken as the plural you largely in Western Pennsylvania. As you increase distance from Western Pennsylvania, you don't hear yuns very much. Y'all, of course, comes from what part of the United States? The South, exactly right. And as you increase distance from the South, the use of y'all to mean plural you diminishes. That's distance decay. Now, when I was in India, of course, there are McDonald's and Carl's Jr. there. But they alter. This is that McDonald's that I showed you before. Take a look at the menu. First, just look at the menu. Don't worry about the yellow arrow. Where's the beef? Isn't a Big Mac a quarter pounder? Aren't these beef things in the United States? Well, take a look here. The McVeggie, the McChicken, the filet of fish, the McSpicy paneer, paneer is cheese, the McSpicy chicken, the chicken Maharaja Mac, the veg Maharaja Mac, okay? And then look, make it a meal. This isn't supersize it, what we would have in the United States. It's upsized to large fries and large soft drink. Big savings. But that doesn't really translate so well into the South Asian version of English, so they say, make it a meal, upsize it. It's a menu of Carl's Jr. Again, where's the beef? Yeah, there's mutton. Mutton is sheep. But take a look, no beef. Why isn't there any beef in the McDonald's or the Carl's Jr. in India? Because the cow is sacred for 80% of the population. And so those people do not eat, even kill cows. Look at the Junior burgers. You think you're finding burgers there. The Junior Famous Star, except it's chicken. And when you see the Junior Aloo Achari, aloo is potato. Take a look at it. Looks good though, doesn't it? Yummy. Okay. As something spreads, or as a person brings culture into a new area, three things can happen. One is acculturation. And this means the following. These are changes in a culture as a result of two or more groups intersecting over time. This is more flexible in terms of what happens to the culture. Think of it like Indian food from South Asia or Mexican food in California. I've been to India and Mexico. The Indian food in India is similar to the Indian food in California, but it is not exactly the same. The Indian food in California has been kind of planed off to fit American tastes. And the same thing with Mexican food. I've been all over the place in Mexico. You may very well know this. Mexicans eat a lot more seafood than most Mexican restaurants in the United States provide. You know, in the United States, what is Mexican food? Tortillas and beans. Yes, those are important, obviously. They come from Mexico. But then it's things like enchiladas and tacos and burritos. Things that you find in Mexico, but you don't find nearly as much as you find in California. And of course, lots and lots and lots of cheddar cheese in California, whereas in Mexico, they use Mexican cheeses. Assimilation is this. The cultural characteristics of one group are altered by contact with another group. So this is a more permanent change. It's not just a flexibility. With the food is basically similar. Now we're talking about a permanent change. For example, you probably know that many people immigrate to the United States from Latin America, may very well be bringing Catholicism with them, but when they come here, they convert to much more evangelical versions of Christianity, which is a very American version of Christianity. Or the adoption of language. Many people immigrate to the United States, and when they come here, they only speak the language that they brought with them. They may not speak English for their entire lifetime or minimally while they're in the United States. But their kids begin to switch over to speaking English more frequently, and their grandkids, well, they have to go to school to learn the original language because the language falls away. So it's a permanent change. And then syncretism is a combination of two or more distinct cultural characteristics. And what that does is it creates a brand new product. A couple of examples of this would be, for example, Santeria, which is a religion. And it's a mix of Roman Catholicism and African religions, where as African slaves were brought to the Western Hemisphere, they brought their religions, but then they mixed these things with Catholicism, and Santeria is what came out of it. Alsatian is a language spoken in the northeastern part of France. This is where Germany and France come together, an area that's been fought over for centuries. The result is many of the people who live in Alsace and Lorraine, the two northeastern states of France, speak Alsatian, which is a mix of German and French. That would be syncretism.